Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while since we've done this live reaction, but this is the Air with Brian Gregoire live from the breathtaking Fort Worth, Texas, and we finally have some breaking news. So that's something that we're going to celebrate here on this channel. It's been a long time coming in the NFL and college football. The news cycle has been pretty slow, to say the least, but we finally have some here. The Steelers are officially signing Aaron Rodgers. That became official today. What's going to happen is he's going to fly out to Pittsburgh tomorrow and officially sign with the Steelers, and then he'll start mandatory minicamp next week. So that was the strategy, was getting signs before that takes place next week. If any of you all saw my short earlier that I put out, and I put it out on YouTube, TikTok, I said it on there. This felt inevitable. This felt expected. And now it's just coming to fruition. Aaron Rodgers is going to the Steelers. And so we can now exhale. We know that this is going to be a thing. And it is what it is. Now, there's been a lot of mixed reactions from this. I will say, Steeler fans, and I love y'all. You're one of the most loyal, passionate fan bases in the NFL. But I don't think that I've ever seen the Steelers fan base more infuriated in my entire life. Speaking of the TikTok that I put out earlier, I've had a lot of Steelers fans comment on that so far, and they're infuriated, saying they don't want Aaron Rodgers. This is another blunder from the organization. They're getting impatient because, take into context, the Steelers these past couple of years, it has been since 2016 that they've won a playoff game. And just put that in perspective. It's been almost 10 years that an organization with that kind of standard has won a playoff game. They've made a lot of appearances, but they don't advance. And so Steelers fans want something that's realistically going to move the needle. And I know there's been a lot of, connotations about Aaron Rodgers when it comes to his attitude and how that's going to translate over to a city like Pittsburgh. And that's viable. That's understandable, because Pittsburgh's identity is very blue collar. It's very lunch pail to work. And Aaron Rodgers is one of those guys, he likes the drama. He likes the sideshow. I'm not going to sit here and act like he doesn't, because he does. That's just the reality of the situation. I don't create this show to kiss ass. I don't need to kiss anybody's ass. Like, I'm going to be real here and say that the drama's there. And that's why he held out for as long as he did. Aaron Rodgers could have signed with the Steelers back in April. It was because at that point, as we know, in the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, Minnesota was out. They're going with J.J. McCarthy. And the Giants are out. They're going with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and they drafted Jackson Dart. And so that left Rodgers with really one option. We're going to Pittsburgh. So this could have been finalized a while ago, but he wanted to, explore his options, maybe go into the darkness again at one point. But it's every offseason with Aaron Rodgers that you get this kind of thing. And when he gets a situation like this, he likes to elongate it. He likes to drag it out. And so I get it. Like, that was very annoying. That was very agitating. But now, like, we can finally drop that. I want to highlight a few of the comments from Steelers fans on this TikTok here, because it's actually quite hilarious. And so one person just commented, "Fug no," which is hilarious. Just Rooney and Tomlin proving their ineptitude. That I don't agree with that. Somebody was optimistic. I don't care what anybody says. This was a great signing. I'm very excited. That's a good optimistic way to look at it. Here comes the circus. This sucks. We hate him. This is some very passionate takes on good old TikTok earlier. But Pittsburgh fans, they're not thrilled about this. I'm going to give my take here. And so there's some situations and deals and signings that I'm very high on. There's others that I'm very much against. And then there's some where, and this is where most of them lie, and this is where this one checks into. I see both sides. There's things I like about this, and there's things that I don't. I'll start with the positive. I'll start with what I like about the Steelers signing Aaron Rodgers. Compare Aaron Rodgers going to Pittsburgh to Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers is somebody, like, he's a very independent person. No, he's a very authentic person. He's his own guy. He marches to the beat of his own drum. And he's one of those people that doesn't listen to others, and he does what he's going to do because that's what he's going to do. That's how he's wired. That's how he's made up. He's a drifter. That's just him. You pair somebody with that personality type with a situation like the Jets, where there's not a lot of structure, there's not a lot of organization. This is the first time Aaron Rodgers ever faced anything like this, was with the Jets. General manager, not great. Robert Saleh, the Jets made the hire, but as time went on, they were not as bought in. Fans were not as bought in. And he's not much of a disciplinarian. You know, he was one of those quote-unquote players coach guys. Like, he's not one of those guys that forges a culture. If you don't buy in and get the fuck out. Like, that's not who Robert Saleh was. Somebody with that free-spirited mentality like Aaron Rodgers has, you're going to pair him with a situation like the Jets, and it's just going to be toxic. Exactly like it was. Because you've got somebody with that free-spirited personality and mentality, and they're in a situation with no structure. And so, naturally, that tire is just going to spin in the mud. Look at Green Bay. There's a lot of structure there. Things have been done a certain way in that building forever, since the Lombardi days. You had reliable general manager. You had two good head coaching regimes. People can say what they want about Mike McCarthy. His tenure in Green Bay was very successful, and so is Matt LaFleur so far. His continues to be successful. And so Green Bay's an organization, unlike the Jets, they've always had their shit together. And so despite what Aaron Rodgers' personality is like, he was able to rein it in because that structure was there. And I think you have the same thing in Pittsburgh. Newer general manager, we're seeing what that's made of, but we know who Mike Tomlin is. This is a guy who has a ring. This is a guy who brings a team with okay roster every year to the playoffs. Very impressive. Probably one of the single best cultures in the NFL. And respect is a big thing in the NFL. And you can see it reflected in body language when it comes to players. You see it by how they act on the podium, how they regard their head coaches. There are very few head coaches out there who players have a higher regard for, both on the Steelers and on other teams, than Mike Tomlin. He's a highly respected, highly regarded individual in the NFL. Just being real, I don't think the same could have been said about Robert Saleh when he was with the Jets. That's just reality. You're pairing Aaron Rodgers with that situation, an organization like the Packers in Pittsburgh that has been known for doing things a certain way forever. Very traditional, very disciplined, very much a law and order organization. They're an organization that has their shit together. There's 6 Super Bowls to prove it. I like the pairing of Aaron Rodgers with that. I think that that's a positive. I also think that if I'm seeing this the right way, and I might not be, and that's okay, but if I'm seeing this the right way, I think that Pittsburgh's vision here is, because this is a 1-year deal, they're bringing in Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be a 1-year thing, and they're having Will Howard sit behind him. From what it seems like inside the walls of the organization, is that Will Howard is who they want to be their guy. And I like Will Howard. I hope that he succeeds in Pittsburgh. I think that would be a great pairing. But with that said, I don't think that he's fully, completely ready to take the field as a starting quarterback in the NFL just yet. And so I like the thought of bringing Aaron Rodgers in because you can get a Will Howard to sit back, not much pressure on him, kind of like Jackson Dart's doing in New York. I think they're kind of two of the same, Jackson Dart and Will Howard, where I think there's a lot of potential there. There's a high ceiling, but they're not exactly ready to go start an NFL game just yet. Did not love the notion of Mason Rudolph and Will Howard's being in that quarterback room together. I just don't think that was going to be great for Will Howard's development if that's who they want to be their guy long term. Because I respect Mason Rudolph, but he's a backup. He's proven that. Now you're bringing somebody like Aaron Rodgers, who has 4 MVPs, a Super Bowl ring, a shit ton of experience. That's great for somebody like Will Howard to sit and ride and develop with. And I know a lot of people out there say Aaron Rodgers is washed. And yes, obviously, compared to what I watched of Aaron Rodgers in high school when he was with the Packers, 2015, 2012, 2013, 2011. Yeah, those were some special times. That was, like Stephen A. said, that was a bad man. He's definitely lost that luster because he's, 41 years old. You're going to lose your zip after a while. He still got it a little bit, though. Like, you saw signs, you saw times last year where he very much still had it. I got my man Jeremy Olson here in the comments section who agrees mentoring Will Howard all year and he can take over the following year. Yes, Jeremy, I love that. Like, even if I see Rodgers playing this whole year, even if they put Will Howard in at some point late in the season, okay. But with somebody of the prominence of Aaron Rodgers, I very much see him playing the whole year with the Steelers. And so I think that combination, like if that's the plan moving forward, I like it. Now, the downsides of this, and I've got a few here. Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old. And so this year, I don't really know what Pittsburgh is going to get out of this. And what I think is a big downfall of this whole situation is how Pittsburgh looks, the optics of this. Because like I said a few minutes ago, this has always been a team that has had their shit together. They've always been an organization that's known for having law and order within its walls. Pittsburgh has always been one of the gold standard organizations in the NFL. But for the first time in my life, they looked a little desperate. And I didn't like that. They had both those options. Justin Fields, Russell Wilson sitting there. They let both walk. They let both go to different teams. Both in New York, coincidentally enough. And then they were left with really 2 options. Either Will Howard and Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers. And they went with the latter. And so I didn't love the way that looked because for a while it kind of looked like there wasn't much of a plan. Like they just kept on passing on options and passing on options. And that's been the thing with Pittsburgh these past several years is that the surface, they do look kind of rudderless from an organization standpoint. I was talking about this with a Steeler fan the other day. If you assess their roster, there's depth, but with certain positions. Like you look at Pittsburgh's defensive line, you look at their tight end unit, and it's like 4 or 5 deep. Then you look at the running back position. And they're mainly just going with Jalen Warren this year. Like, there's not much of a plan. And until today, there wasn't much of a plan at quarterback. And so it's just weird the way that this team has been composed these past several years. And that's what I think has been the primary reason as to why they continue to go, 9-8, 10-7. 6 seed, 7 seed every year. Mike Tomlin gets them there, but the roster has just been kind of wonky, like for a while, like even last year at the quarterback situation with a two-guy system. I didn't really know what Pittsburgh's end goal was. Like you look at other organizations, not only in the AFC, but in Pittsburgh's own division. You look at Baltimore, and there is a clear vision there. We are putting all of our chips on the table with Lamar and Derrick Henry. That's going to get us to the Super Bowl. Whether it does or not, that remains to be seen. But there's a strategy. There's a vision in Baltimore. Cincy, and granted, they still have to do work with that cornerback room. I'm still puzzled by that. But they know that their strength lies in that combination of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. They kept T. Higgins in the building. They know they're very much rooted in the passing game. That's their strength. Pittsburgh, yes, they've had that punishing defensive line for years. They've had studs on defense. T.J. Watts, Minkah Fitzpatrick. You've got dogs. Highsmith. You've got dogs on that defense. But it's felt very Iowa and a way that they've been reliant on that defense. And then offense has been just okay, but they think that their defense is enough to get them out of most situations. This Aaron Rodgers move further shows and further extrapolates Pittsburgh just looking desperate to find a vision on offense. I don't really know what they're trying to accomplish here. And I could be all wet. There could be a strategy here. Like I said, it could be this Aaron Rodgers into Will Howard thing, and they really could be cooking something up. But right now, I can't tell if there's a clear vision or if they're just throwing gel to the wall and hoping it sticks. The other thing that I don't particularly love about this whole situation is that if Will Howard is the guy that they're going with, I don't know if he's a sure shot. Because he does have that clutch gene. Like you saw him get better as the pressure mounted. College Bowl playoff, he was great in the Tennessee game. He was great in the Oregon game. He was situationally great in the Texas and the Notre Dame game, which is huge in the NFL. He's not always the most consistent. He can make bad decisions sometimes. His release isn't as quick as some of the other guys that got drafted this year. But there is dog in him. But at the end of the day, I don't really know how he's going to pan out. And so Pittsburgh went and got a guy in Kenny Pickett a couple years ago. They rode true with a Pennsylvania guy, with a Pittsburgh guy, and it failed them. And they're doing the same here. They got another Pennsylvania guy, and that's been Pittsburgh. They like to keep it in state. They look to the state of Pennsylvania. They like to be loyal to their roots, but sometimes they can be to a fault. And so if that's the vision, Aaron Rodgers to Will Howard, and then it doesn't work out, if you're Pittsburgh, you have to go back to square one again and draft a quarterback or sign a veteran. So I just don't want to see them getting stuck in the same cycle of drafting somebody who they're not completely confident in, or going out and signing a veteran for a year or two. There's a couple organizations that have been doing that for years, like the Colts, the Broncos, until Bo Nix. And that to use that same word, it just feels kind of rudderless after a while. So I just don't want to see a prestigious organization like the Steelers get caught in that same rut of repeating that process over and over again. Drafting a guy they're not all in on and signing a veteran. I want to see them put all their chips on the table and have a vision and harness that forward. That's all I've got for Pittsburgh. They're a great organization, and I just want to see them continue to live up to that standard. But this is a move that we could have seen coming for a very long time. It just officially became official today. And, we're starting to see these storylines unfold here, a couple games this year that you're going to want to pop your popcorn for, if you will. Week 1. I think the NFL knew what they were doing all along here. Week 1, We've got Aaron Rodgers playing his former team and Justin Fields playing his former team in the matchup between the Steelers and the Jets. So maybe the NFL knew this was going to go down all along. Very, very, very interesting. And then week 8, you've got Aaron Rodgers playing his other former team, the Green Bay Packers. So he has 2 revenge games in 1 year. I'm going to end with this. And take this for what you will. Aaron Rodgers is somebody that I've looked up to and respected for a very long time. Like I said in my short earlier, he's one of the very few players remaining in the NFL now that I grew up watching. I feel old as shit saying that, but it's true. I don't want to see him go out bad. I don't want to see him go out looking clunky and wonky. I want to see him go out the right way. And so, bouncing around from team to team, it doesn't look great. Like the final year at the Packers wasn't statistically great. The time with the Jets wasn't great. I hope that Aaron Rodgers really rebounds here with Pittsburgh and ends this career off on the right note. You know, when you look at the AFC and you look at this division, I don't think this is really a move that pushes the needle, that moves the needle that much. Like, it doesn't put them up in the conversation with Kansas City and Buffalo and Baltimore. Like, I think those are still clearly your best teams in the AFC. I think Pittsburgh is still arguably your third best team in the AFC North, depending on how Cincy's defense looks and improves this year. Who knows if Cleveland gets a little burst? You know, the chances of that are very low, but who knows if they surprise the people this year? It's not really a move that moves the needle that much. You know, I think Pittsburgh still looks the same that they have these past several years. I think they're still like a 10-win team. Ceiling's 11. Floor's at 8 or 7. Now, I think that they're still a fringe playoff team, 6 or 7 seed. I think they're going to churn out the same thing that they have these past several years, which I don't love. Like I say, a lot of respect for the Steelers organization, and I want to see it get better. I want to see them be a consistent contender like they were in the 2000s when I was growing up with those Ben Roethlisberger, Hines Ward, James Harrison teams. Like, that was just fucking electric, and I want to see that come back once again. But as far as the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, I want to see this be a good partnership because this is an organization and a guy that I've had a lot of respect for a very long time, especially growing up watching both this team and this player. I want to see this be a good pairing. I want to see Aaron Rodgers go out the right way. I don't want this to look sloppy. You know, we've seen it the past several years with players and coaches in the NBA, in the NFL, bouncing around in different teams and regress and gradually just phase out of the league. Aaron Rodgers is too good for that to happen to. And so, love him or hate him, he's a very polarizing player. Like, yes, you know, he's got that prickly side to him. Yes, he's got that dramatic side to him. But the guy's a dog. He's a bad man. He has one of the best throwing motions and releases that I've ever seen. He's clutch. And he's a very respectable player. You know, some players have talked shit about him, but a lot of guys love playing for Aaron Rodgers. One last thing I'll end with here, and I'll really end it here. You know, you're going to hear a lot of stuff here about Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf playing together because they can both be drama guys, and who knows? Maybe there will be some sideline blow-ups this year. But kind of like a presence like Mike Tomlin. Somebody like Aaron Rodgers, a guy like DK Metcalf is going to have a lot of respect for. And Aaron Rodgers is going to have a lot of respect for Mike Tomlin. And so I just think there's a lot of respect there in that organization. And that's going to keep everything in line. Like, I've always been somebody, I'm like a chameleon. I acclimate to the environment around me. Now, especially in high school, in the classes where I had a strict teacher, I was on my A game. I was my best, and I performed better. But if my teacher was kind of a half-ass, kind of a goof-off, well, I would goof off too, and I wouldn't be as productive. You know, I can see the same with Aaron Rodgers here. But this is a very button-up organization, very respected head coach in Mike Tomlin. And you're getting somebody in the organization like Aaron Rodgers who players have a lot of respect for. And so I think that's going to push the vision forward in Pittsburgh. At the end of the day, I don't think it shifts the odds that much. I think this is still a 9-10 win team, but hopefully this will be the bridge from Aaron Rodgers on to Will Howard the following year, and that can be Pittsburgh's next franchise quarterback. But Aaron Rodgers is officially going to the Steel City. Steelers fans are pissed. I can't wait to continue to interact with them because it's been quite entertaining, I must say. But love you all Steelers fans. And I think that this move really may end up paying off for y'all's organization. But can't wait to see what this looks like on the field this year. And we'll be breaking this down as we continue to approach the NFL season here. As far as what we're looking at for the era here, on these next couple of weeks, we'll be having Zeke back on. We haven't talk NFL. We having Luke back on, talk college football here. This week I'm going to Nashville, so there's going to be a lot of shorts content, and then we'll be back to the normal cadence next week. But thank you all for tuning in, and let me know what y'all think about Aaron Rodgers going to the Steelers in the comments section below. Have a great day.